Listen carefully, because this might sting a little. Some of the habits you are most proud of. The ones people call kind, generous, even selfless, might actually be the very things draining your power. For 10 seconds, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Are you being kind, or are you slowly disappearing because many of us were raised to believe that being a good person means being agreeable, accommodating, and endlessly understanding? We were taught to smooth things over, to keep the peace, to give people the benefit of the doubt again and again. But here's the truth no one says out loud. Sometimes what we call kindness is actually fear wearing a polite mask, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as difficult, selfish, or unlovable. So we smile when we're hurt, we say yes when we're exhausted, we forgive behavior that keeps breaking us. And slowly, quietly, piece by piece, we give our power away. The dangerous part is that the world often rewards this behavior. People praise you for being easy to deal with. They admire how patient you are. They tell you how lucky everyone is to have someone so understanding. But deep down, something inside you starts whispering a different story. You feel invisible. You feel resentful. You feel like your needs somehow matter less than everyone else's. And the truth is kindness that erases you isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment. Today I want to talk about 5 habits that look compassionate on the surface, habits many strong, empathetic people fall into. But underneath, they quietly train the world to treat you as if your boundaries don't exist. And once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. Let's start with the first one. The first habit that secretly makes you powerless is always saying yes to keep the peace. It sounds kind, doesn't it? You tell yourself. It's not a big deal. You think, I don't want to make things awkward. You convince yourself that being easygoing is just part of being a good person. So you say yes. Yes to favors when you're already overwhelmed. Yes to plans when your body is begging for rest. Yes to responsibilities that were never yours to carry. And in that moment, it feels like kindness. It feels mature. It feels like you're being the bigger person. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Every unnecessary yes is a quiet no to yourself. When you repeatedly silence your own needs to keep others comfortable, you teach people something powerful and dangerous. You teach them that your time is flexible. Your energy is unlimited. Your boundaries are optional. And most people don't do this maliciously. They're simply responding to the pattern you've created. If you always say yes, people will keep asking. If you never push back, people assume there's nothing to push against. Over time, something heavy begins to grow inside you. Resentment. You start feeling taken advantage of. You feel drained after interactions that used to feel meaningful. You wonder why people don't seem to respect your limits. But respect can't grow where boundaries never existed. Real kindness isn't about constant agreement. Real kindness includes honesty, clarity, and self-respect. Because a healthy no doesn't destroy relationships. It reveals which ones were built on mutual care and which ones were built on your quiet sacrifice. And once you understand that, something shifts. You realize that saying no isn't cruel. Sometimes it's the most powerful act of self-respect you can practice. And the second habit that quietly steals your power is even more subtle. The second habit that secretly makes you powerless is over explaining your boundaries. Now this one is tricky because it often comes from a very human place. You don't want to hurt anyone. You don't want to seem rude or cold. So when you set a boundary, you feel this urge to soften it, to justify it, to make sure everyone understands that you're still a good person. So instead of simply saying, I can't do that, you start explaining. You tell the whole story. You talk about how busy you've been. You mention how tired you are. You apologize 3 different ways. You hope that if people understand your reasons, they'll accept your boundary without getting upset. But here's the deeper truth. The moment you over-explain your boundary, you accidentally turn it into a negotiation because explanations invite debate. Someone might say, oh, it won't take that long, or you handled more last week, or come on, you're the only one who can help. And suddenly, The boundary you tried to set becomes a conversation about whether your reasons are good enough. But your boundaries are not court cases. You do not need to present evidence to prove you deserve rest, space, or respect. A healthy boundary is not an argument. It's a statement of self-respect. People who struggle with this often carry a quiet fear underneath it all. The fear of being misunderstood, disliked, or judged. So they try to manage other people's feelings by explaining more and more. But here's the paradox. The more you try to control how people react, the more power you give their reactions over you. Strong boundaries are often simple. I can't commit to that. That doesn't work for me. I need to step back. No long speech, no emotional defense, just calm clarity. And when you practice that kind of clarity, something surprising happens. People may not always like your boundaries, but they start respecting them. And the third kind habit that quietly takes your power away is something many deeply caring people do without even realizing it. The third habit that quietly steals your power is constantly trying to fix everyone else's problems. At first glance, this looks like one of the most beautiful qualities a person can have. You care deeply. When someone you love is hurting, your instinct is to step in, help, solve, support, repair. You listen for hours. You offer advice. You rearrange your life to make things easier for them. You believe that love means showing up, carrying weight, making things better, and compassion like that is powerful. But here's where it becomes dangerous. When helping turns into rescuing, something unhealthy begins to form. Because when you take responsibility for solving someone else's life, you quietly take something away from them, their accountability. You become the emotional emergency service for everyone around you. Every crisis comes to you. Every problem lands on your shoulders. Every difficult decision somehow becomes yours to manage. And at first, people are grateful. They praise you for being dependable. They say things like, I don't know what I'd do without you. But over time, a hidden shift happens. They stop solving things themselves, not because they're lazy, but because you've unintentionally trained them to rely on you. Meanwhile, you start feeling overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, and strangely invisible. Because while you're busy holding everyone else together, no one is asking who's holding you. Real empathy doesn't mean carrying other people's lives. It means standing beside them while they learn to carry their own. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can say is not advice, not solutions, not rescue. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can say is, I trust you to figure this out. Because when you stop fixing everything, you give others something powerful, the chance to grow, and you give yourself something equally powerful, your energy back. And the fourth habit that looks like kindness, but quietly drains your strength, is something many of us were praised for growing up. The fourth habit that secretly makes you powerless is avoiding conflict at all costs. Many of us were taught that good people don't argue. Good people don't create tension. Good people keep the peace. So when something hurts you, you stay quiet. When someone crosses a line, you brush it off. When a situation feels unfair, you convince yourself it's not worth the drama. You tell yourself things like, it's not that serious. You say, I don't want to make it a big deal. You think maybe I'm just being sensitive. But here's the hard truth. Avoiding conflict doesn't create peace. It creates silence. And silence is not the same thing as harmony. Silence allows disrespect to repeat. Silence allows resentment to grow. Silence allows people to believe their behavior is acceptable. When you refuse to address problems, the issue doesn't disappear. It just moves inside you. It turns into frustration. It turns into emotional distance. It turns into that quiet feeling that something isn't right, but you're not allowed to say it out loud. And over time, that silence slowly erodes your sense of power. Because every time you swallow your truth to keep someone comfortable, you send yourself a painful message, my feelings are less important than their comfort. But healthy relationships are not built on the absence of conflict. They are built on the courage to move through conflict with honesty and respect. Conflict, when handled with integrity, actually strengthens connection. It clarifies expectations. It protects boundaries. It allows people to understand each other in ways silence never could. The goal isn't to become aggressive or confrontational. The goal is something much braver, to speak your truth without abandoning your kindness, because real kindness doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. Sometimes real kindness sounds like this: that hurt me. I'm not okay with that. We need to talk about this. And when you learn to do that, you stop shrinking yourself to maintain a false peace. You start creating real respect. And the fifth habit, the one that quietly steals more power than almost any other, is something deeply empathetic people struggle with the most. The fifth habit that quietly strips away your power is constantly seeking approval before trusting yourself. This habit is incredibly common among thoughtful, empathetic, high-functioning people. You care about doing the right thing. You care about how your choices affect others. So before you make a decision, you check in with people around you. You ask what they think. You ask what they would do. You ask if your choice makes sense. And again, it looks like humility. It looks like thoughtfulness. But underneath it, there is often something much more fragile, a quiet belief that other people's judgment is more reliable than your own. So instead of listening to that inner voice, the one that already knows when something feels wrong, when something feels aligned, when something feels off, you start scanning the room for permission. You wait for someone to nod. You wait for someone to approve. You wait for someone to reassure you that you're not making a mistake. But here's what slowly happens when approval becomes your compass. Your confidence weakens. Because confidence doesn't grow from being constantly validated. It grows from making decisions and trusting yourself to handle the outcome. When every decision requires outside approval, your power quietly migrates into other people's hands. Their opinions begin to shape your life. Their comfort starts influencing your choices. Their expectations begin defining your path. And one day you look around and realize something unsettling. You've built a life that makes sense to everyone else, but you're not sure it feels true to you. The truth is, strong people listen to advice, but they do not surrender their authority. Your intuition is not an accident. It is a lifetime of experiences, lessons, and instincts quietly guiding you. It may not always be perfect. But neither is anyone else's opinion. The goal is not to stop caring about others. The goal is to stop outsourcing your self-trust, because the moment you start believing your voice deserves a seat at the table, something powerful shifts. You stop asking for permission to exist. And you start making choices that actually belong to you. But there is another habit many people carry that silently weakens their influence in ways they rarely notice. Another habit that looks generous on the outside, but quietly weakens your power, is constantly minimizing your own needs. This often begins in subtle ways. You're in a group deciding where to go, what to eat, what plan to follow, and you say, "I'm fine with anything." When someone asks what you want, you quickly respond, "Whatever works for everyone else." It feels harmless. It feels flexible. You might even think it makes you easier to be around. But when this becomes a pattern, something deeper begins to happen. You start shrinking your presence in your own life. Your preferences disappear first, then your opinions, then your needs. Over time, people stop asking what you want, not because they don't care, but because you've taught them that your answer will always be the same. Anything is fine, and slowly your voice fades into the background. Inside, however, the story feels very different. You start feeling overlooked. You feel like your desires don't matter. You feel like you're always adjusting while everyone else moves freely. But here's the truth that many compassionate people struggle to accept. Your needs are not inconveniences. They are signals of your humanity. Wanting rest is not selfish. Wanting consideration is not demanding. Wanting your voice heard is not dramatic. Healthy relationships make room for everyone's needs, not just the loudest ones. When you constantly minimize what matters to you, you unintentionally send a message to the world: my comfort is optional. But when you begin expressing your preferences, even in small ways, You reclaim something important. You remind people that you are not just the accommodating one, the easygoing one, the one who adapts. You are a person with thoughts, desires, limits, and boundaries that deserve space. And when that shift happens, something powerful unfolds. People begin to see you differently, not as someone who simply fits into everyone else's plans, but as someone whose presence shapes the room. And the next habit that quietly drains your power is something deeply empathetic people do because they believe it makes them compassionate.